Hi everyone. So for our project, we were assigned school choice. So school choice is a term used to describe a variety of programs designed to allow families to choose a different option other than attending the school in which their children are assigned by their geographical location. And this idea was first promoted by political conservatives who were dissatisfied with the lack of alternatives to public education. Advocates of school choice argue that the freedom to choose is a Central American value. So, if we can choose where and how we live and the types of jobs we have, should we not also have a choice in the kind of school our children attend? Although, still, where students go to school is still largely determined by the neighborhoods they live in. Oppositions of school choice. So, opponents of school choice counter the aforementioned arguments by suggesting that families already have choices. For example, they could just move to a neighborhood with better schools, since the quality of education is a major factor parents consider when choosing where to live. And some families, desperate for a better education for their child, even go as far as falsifying information to claim residency in another district. Another thing is if the parents do not like the school they are zoned to, opponents argue that they could just move or send their child to a private school. And obviously, this does require time and money, but they still argue that the family technically still has that choice. Many parents do not have the resources to send their child to a non public school, and they can't just afford to move to a better neighborhood with a better school. So, school choice includes the following options that we will go into further detail throughout this presentation. So, attending a traditional public school other than the school to which students would be assigned by their geographical location, attending a magnet school, attending a private school, homeschooling and virtual schools, attending a charter school, receiving vouchers to provide financial support for education outside of the assigned school, and lastly, receiving tax credits and deductions for expenses related to schooling outside the public school system.
Hi everyone, my name is Amber Williams and I'm going to be talking today about magnet schools. I'm going to be going over what they are, their general pros and cons, and their implications for teachers and future teachers like us. So, what is a magnet school? So, a magnet school is a public school, but it just offers a particular academic focus alongside the standard curriculum. So, magnet school is exactly like a normal public school, but outside of the standard curriculum that they will use for standardized testing, their curriculum will also be focused on a particular focus of the entire school, which will be like, for example, STEM or performing arts or world languages, etc. And so their whole curriculum and academic focus is on that particular focus in subject. And then they also will teach the standard curriculum that is needed for standardized testing. Um, there are magnet schools at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. So they're at all levels. And if you see the picture on the side, it kind of shows you a snapshot of magnet schools in America. So it shows you where the least are in the certain states and where the most are. So Texas has quite a few, but the most are located in California and Florida. So, how are they different than public schools? So, the first way that they are different is that they focus on a specialized curriculum. Like I said earlier, the common programs are STEM, performing arts, and world languages, etc. So, this is exactly what I was mentioning earlier about how, unlike public schools, they offer a specialized focus outside of their standard curriculum. Another reason they are different is that they use a lottery system or an application system to allow students into the program. So they will cap the number of students they will allow in, and they will either use a lottery system or an application system. And the last way is that they are open to all students regardless of your address. So normally you would go to the public school that is closest to your address, but this is a really cool opportunity for kids who may live in a poorer neighborhood, so that they can go to a school that has better opportunity, maybe more safe, maybe it's just better for them all around. And yeah. So, general pros and cons of magnet schools. So, the pros are, one is that they're free, which is really awesome. Like any other public school, they are free. And it's really awesome because they can provide really great opportunities for your kids while still being free. The second pro is that the academics, they may be more highly rated or just have better programs in general. Another pro is just that if your kid is very interested in performing arts or STEM or anything like that, it might be really awesome for them to go to a magnet school where that is the academic focus. And then number three, the diversity. They tend to be more diverse schools since they admit students from all over the city. They don't take only kids from a certain area, they take them from all over. And also because magnet schools were actually founded to end segregation, which is really awesome. The cons is that the family is usually responsible for student transportation. So, with them magnet schools taking kids from all over the city and taking kids regardless of their address, the transportation is usually an issue just because either the family is responsible for their transportation, or if they provide bus transportation, it may be a really long route or an additional charge. And so I was looking up resources online, and it said that sometimes the bus transportation can be over an hour there and back, which could be really detrimental for them. Maybe if they have after school programs, like maybe like they do classes outside of school, like tumbling or gymnastics or something like that. Or if they just get hungry, simply with stuff like that. So that could be a huge con depending on where you live. Another con could be curriculum options for magnet schools may be just too narrow for certain students. Another thing is fewer extracurricular activities since they specialize in a certain area. There may be less extracurricular activities since that is the school's focus. Another one is less control over whether or not students can attend, since they only take students from a lottery system or application system. It's not like you're guaranteed into the school. One last argued con is that they pull away the gifted students from traditional public schools. So sometimes people will mention that magnet schools will take all the good students and leave public schools just hanging there, um, which could be a potential con for traditional public schools. So, implications for teachers and future teachers like us. Teacher benefits are identical to traditional public school teachers. So, the benefits don't change for us if we teach at a regular public school or a magnet school, they stay pretty much the same. Sometimes magnet schools don't have to follow the traditional hiring process, so the administrator can interview any teacher regardless of seniority. This is a great opportunity for us new teachers since we can just apply and don't have to worry about seniority with getting the position. Magnet schools often just choose the best fitted teachers for the job. And so this can be a great opportunity for us if we specialize in a certain field like STEM and the school is focused on STEM. That could be a great way for us to have that opportunity to teach somewhere where we specialize. They are afforded more salary allowance. This can lead to increased pay for magnet teachers. So, since they are given more money, this can lead to more money for us, which is really, really great. Another implication is that we can teach more diverse students. So, like I said earlier, since these kids are more diverse because they take kids from all over the city and because these schools are founded on ending segregation, we get to teach more diverse students, which for me, I would absolutely love that. I love teaching all different kinds of students and all different kinds of people. Um, and I just love being around different kinds of people. I was looking online as I was doing the district policy assignment, and I was looking over Highland Park's um, students and their ethnicities, and 83% of Highland Park ISD students are white students. And it would just be so crazy to teach only white students. I would love to teach more diverse students from all over the place. That would just be a great opportunity to learn more about their culture and more about them. And I would love that. So that would be a great pro for some people. So, since the school's focus is on a certain curriculum, teachers who specialize in that curriculum may be more motivated by the school's focus. So, this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier about how if you are a performing arts teacher and that's kind of your focus, then it could be really awesome to teach at a magnet school where the focus of the entire school is performing arts. And it may just motivate you as the teacher, and it may just be a great opportunity for you in general. Implications for teachers, part two. So, magnet schools usually have more freedom in curriculum planning and educational decision making. This can be awesome for teachers who just love that kind of freedom. And I feel like it can really boost morale and motivation for those kind of teachers as well, because with that freedom comes them teaching things that mean something to them, that can really make an impact on their students. And so, overall, I think that freedom can really motivate teachers and boost their morale because they feel like they can really make a difference in students' lives. Magnet schools typically support smaller class size. I feel like this is a pro for any teacher all around. I think that almost every teacher cares about student teacher relationships. And so, with that, smaller class size, you can build more relationships with your students. And it's just a great pro. Not as many kids to handle, so you can really focus on teaching. Studies show that magnet schools have higher academic and extracurricular success than the traditional public school. So, this can be awesome just because you can teach students that are more highly motivated, and just also working in a school that is successful is a great feeling. A couple disadvantages include limited jobs available, since the schools can take any teacher from everywhere, and they typically want the best teachers fitted for the particular focus of the school. There are not only limited jobs available, but really a competitive application process. Um, and so it can be hard to find a job in a magnet school, especially since there are not as many as the regular public schools around. So that can be a disadvantage, and also just the normal public school rules in effect, aka standardized testing. I feel like this could cause teachers to feel like pulled in different directions because they could feel like they are teaching to the test and teaching for standardized tests coming up, but they also just feel like they have that freedom in curriculum planning and have that freedom of teaching. Um, that goes along with the academic focus of the school, such as performing arts or STEM. And so I feel like this could cause teachers to be pulled in different directions for teaching the standardized curriculum and also the curriculum of the focus of the school. Um, and so this could be a disadvantage for teachers, but all around, I think that magnet schools are a great opportunity for kids. I think they are a great opportunity for teachers and for future teachers when it comes to looking for jobs. I think all around they are great schools, and although there are a couple of disadvantages, I think there are great opportunities that come with it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Modia and I will be going over the private schools portion of this project. What is a private school? A private school is a school that is established, conducted, and primarily supported by a non-governmental agency. Differences between private schools and public schools. Private schools are not funded or operated by federal, state, or local governments. One of the main differences between private schools and public schools is that private schools are not funded by the government, whereas public schools are. They are not paid for by public tax dollars and are not subject to the regulations that govern public schools. However, most private schools choose not to stray too far from federal policies and strive to provide a quality of education equal to or better than that available in public schools. Unlike public schools, they are allowed to set their own criteria for admitting students and are not subject to the limitations of school districts and zoning laws, which allows families to choose a private school regardless of their location. I'm going to go over just a few pros and cons of private schools. Private schools are very academic focused. They put a lot of the emphasis on education. They also have small class sizes, which leads to more one-on-one attention from the teacher. And being at a private school gives the student a competitive edge. A disadvantage includes tuition. Tuition can be very expensive. Many private schools do not offer special education programs, and they're also not very diverse. Implications for teachers. Thin management structure. A private school is its own entity. It's not part of a large administrative group of schools like those in a school district, so you don't have to go through layers of bureaucracy to deal with issues. Private schools are autonomous units of manageable size. Small class size. This issue goes to the heart of what every teacher is all about. Like I mentioned earlier, small class size allows educators in private schools to teach effectively, give students the individual attention they deserve, and accomplish the educational goals entrusted to them. Smaller schools. Most private schools have 300 to 400 students. The largest independent schools top out at only 1,100 students. Compare that with public schools with 2,000 to 4,000 students or more, and it's clear that students in private schools are not just numbers. Teachers can get to know all their students as well as others throughout the school community. The community is what private schools are all about.
Hi, I am Trayvon Jones, and I will be discussing the homeschool portion of our group project with you. What is homeschool? That's the first slide I would love to discuss with y'all. Homeschooling means to educate your children at home instead of sending them off to a public or private school. Therefore, the children are being taught by their parents or legal guardians at home. If you've been watching the news, you know of recent homeschooling has took the, the front row of education right now because COVID-19 is being brought to traditional campuses. So homeschooling is the safest way of learning at this moment. Some might do it because they are dissatisfied with how their child is progressing in a traditional school as well, or some might even do it because of religion beliefs. Homeschool versus traditional school. That is the next slide I would love to talk to y'all about. Well, homeschool children have a habit of learning through an individual experience, while regular school children learn through connection. The homeschool child gets the one-on-one, so they learn through whoever's teaching them, while the regular school student has multiple teachers, so they learn from multiple people, which creates a connection. You get more of an effective learning because of the low student to teacher ratio, which would deprive you of wasted time and busy work. Um, as a student, as a homeschool student, you get that one-on-one, so you're not overlooked and you're not behind on homework because if you need help at that moment, you have that teacher's availability right there in front of you. While a traditional school, it's kind of hard to continue to stay on that subject or that topic for too long because they're on a timetable of what they have to teach in order for you to be able to be ready for a big test. Parents' choice of pace, approach, people are in charge of their child's schedule, grade level, and how the child ultimately learns. So the pace and the approach is two great things about being a homeschool teacher because you get to choose how fast you want to teach that student and how you want to make their basically their schedule for the day and what grade level you want to teach them, and ultimately you get the help uh, to choose how you want your kid to take in information that's being taught to them. There are a lot of families that are starting to embrace homeschooling during this horrifying coronavirus pandemic. The concerns on sending their children back to campus have made homeschooling one of the most popular options of recent. I mean, if you've been watching the news, you have seen there are a lot of corona cases that are starting to develop on campuses. So that's a huge reason why homeschooling has took the front in learning right now, because parents are scared to send their child back to unsafety environment. The next slide we'll be discussing is homeschool pros. We'll start off with academic flexibility. Homeschooling can benefit a child whether they are a fast learner, slow learner, strong minded, creative, or gifted student. You can help a child's mental, emotional, speech communication, and physical health. My number one thing I feel like is very important on this pros list is warm family environment. Family is the best base for a student to gain social development as well as family values and faith. I mean, you, know, you get to choose the curriculum that your child learns, so you can instill the family values and faith within their curriculum for them to study and learn, as well as learning other subjects. Accommodating to special situations. Homeschooling works well for military families that have to move a lot. Parents that have a busy work schedule and families that are struggling with an illness. Now on to the next slide, we will discuss homeschool cons. Starting off with workload, you have to plan school time and activities and handle the workload of being a full-time teacher, which would ultimately make you have the less time each day for yourself. That's what happens when you become a homeschool teacher. You have to pour a lot of your time into helping your child develop in their educational department. Full-time teacher, potential for more stress and fatigue by taking on parenting and teacher responsibilities. Just because you became a homeschool teacher does not mean that you have to take um, a back seat to being a parent. Nope, you're still a parent. You just gotta know when to cut it on and cut it off. Um, no friends. Some homeschool children could have a smaller circle of friends. It could happen. Communicating less every day, interacting with kids within the same age group, making it harder to connect with one's age group unless you have brothers or sisters or cousins around the same age. You're pretty much going to be around your guardian. So whatever age your guardian is what you're gonna learn to communicate with and connect with. So if you're not around kids your age, then it's gonna be hard for you to communicate with kids your age once you get around them. Less material, possibly less resources such as equipment that may be available in a public school. I mean, when you do homeschooling, that's some of the things you have to take into account, that you might not have some of the material that the public schools have, but you got to make do with what you have. On to the next slide, where we will talk about what to know prior to being a homeschool teacher. All teachers and students from pre-K to higher education have revised their learning strategies in order to include strictly online courses that are homeschooled without an option of physically attending classes. Homeschooling during COVID-19 has its pros and cons. There are some students that are failing due to the hands-off style approach of learning, and many students did not return back, which could hinder or better their success in life. Things that come with being a homeschool teacher are: it will let you protect your children from harmful influences that they may encounter at a campus. It also offers more personalized individual learning opportunities than a public school teacher would have. It gives the parent more freedom in planning a curriculum and schedule. Therefore, the parent teacher would have more control over what their kids would be learning. For many homeschooling parents, there is a strong belief that public school curriculum is not providing the correct knowledge and skills for their children. And being a homeschool teacher, they feel like they can change that. We will be discussing today how to become a homeschool teacher. There are no set qualifications for professional homeschool teachers. Requirements vary depending on where the teacher works. These educators are often retired teachers, school teachers who want a more flexible schedule, or former homeschooling parents who want to earn extra income. Some professional homeschool teachers build their own business, scheduling their calendars and handling all the paperwork and payments. Others work for companies that support young students, such as gymnastic studios or tutoring businesses. To avoid the administrative task of scheduling and finding customers. To become a homeschool teacher, decide what courses you would like to offer based on your educational background and whether you would like to be self employed or work for a company. Network with family and friends to find leads within homeschooling communities in your area. Promote your teaching skills and learn to be patient with students of varying abilities. Thank you for listening to my lecture on homeschooling.
Hi, my name is Jesselyn, and in my part, I'll be discussing over virtual schools. And so, compared to homeschooling, it's similar in setting, except that in virtual, it's teachers who are doing the instruction rather than the parents who are doing majority of the guiding. So, what is virtual school is? It's just a school offering courses that connect your teachers and students over the internet. It's also referred to as distance learning because it's exactly what it is. This also includes what is known as hybrid learning, which is basically just you have both face-to-face classes and online learning. UTD offers this as well, and it's even more popular now during COVID since some people feel like they learn the best when they're physically in school, but they don't want to be there too often. There are multiple reasons why someone would pick virtual over something like traditional schools. And benefits like that would include just overall flexibility and the choice to sort of learn how you want to. There are some exceptions, and those go for students who need constant monitoring and the instructions might need to be modified to suit their needs a little bit. So there's might be things going on in the student's daily life that they can't be at school setting at all times. This includes things such as an illness that doesn't allow them to have full focus. So just sitting in a classroom for 8 hours and then being sick all the time, it's a difficult task to do. And there's also a small percentage where kids have to leave to further their art or athletic career. So there's a convenience factor and just kind of control like the transportation and still making sure they're not missing out on too much. And one of the most common reasons for a student leaving the in-person school is due to bullying, and the parents rightfully want to keep them away from harm and to just have more of a controlled setting where you can keep an eye on your child and to make sure they're just out of an unhealthy area. So as I was researching why people would pick virtual learning over other types such as traditional, I was actually finding more negative responses to virtual learning than I was finding the benefits that can be associated with it. So if you remember back on your school board meeting, if mine personally the parents express the same concerns as the reviews that I see online. They are worried about their child falling back, and it was less on the child's safety and more on the fact that the child was just simply not doing a good of a job as they did in traditional schools. They felt like their attendance was low. They felt like they were missing so many assignments, even though they're at home all the time. It just didn't make sense why someone who would make good grades suddenly be falling, since virtual school can be a lot harder for certain people. And I think their main concern was the lack of social interaction with other students, which resulted in slower and decreased social development. And it just felt like it took their motivation away. So, and there's been quite a few research done on if the benefits outweigh the cost, and the results have not been positive, especially on the effectiveness of it. It's still unclear if the issues are with online learning itself or the actual quality of education that's being delivered. So there's still more research on top of that that needs to be done. And one of the biggest frustrations can be from the fact that there's not immediate access from the teacher and vice versa. It's not like in regular classrooms where the teacher can walk around and see what you're doing and then give you feedback right away. So one of the most important things you have to keep in mind about technology is that it's nothing more than a tool. So you have to remember to not just get so discouraged, because as a teacher, you can use technology as a way to support your instruction, but a teacher isn't something that can just be replaced. Even if it seems like everything is becoming virtual and all the work is done online, the instruction cannot be done properly, at least, without the support of a teacher. Kids are still going to need someone to go to, and if it can't be their parents, it has to be their teacher. So distance learning is growing, and especially that jump we have now, this just means that it's likely that every teacher at least once has to participate in virtual kind of learning or some kind of online learning in their career. And the teachers feel both enlightenment and frustration towards it. In a good way, it's something new towards them, so they have a chance to try it out, but there's frustration that comes with it because you can't analyze your students and they can't always ask you questions right when they're feeling confused, and you can't always get an immediate response. And one of the reasons that teachers go into teaching so they can actually, teach their students. And the majority of that is on human interaction and just that overall connection that's there. And taking that away is one of the things that people miss most about being in person classes. However, virtual classes are for your own personal needs, and you eventually have to decide what's the safest route for you and what you think you can handle the best. So at the end, it's still up to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Holly and my topic is charter schools. Today I will be covering what a charter school is, what future educators should know about charter schools, and what teaching in a charter school could look like. What are charter schools? Well, charter schools are independently operated and publicly funded public schools. They provide alternative schooling that focuses on different curriculum or a special population. College prep, STEM curriculum, or the integration of the arts in each subject are some examples of the possible different curriculum focuses among charter schools. Students who are unwed mothers or have behavioral, or emotional problems are some examples of the charter schools that cater towards a special population, providing them with a safe and comfortable environment to learn. Though charter schools are more flexible than public schools with rules, hours, and curriculum, they are held to a higher standard with regards to student academics. Unlike public schools, charter schools are shut down when they do not meet the standards for student academics. What to know prior to applying to teach at a charter school. At charter schools, teachers are not required to be given a planning period. This is because the Texas Education Code, Section 21.404, which states that teachers are entitled to no less than 45 minutes each school day to prepare, does not apply to charter schools. Student to teacher ratio can also be different because the part of the Texas Education Code that gives guidelines to the districts does not apply to charters. Therefore, the student to teacher ratio is decided by those who operate the charter school. Charter school teachers have the possibility of earning a larger salary, but that often comes at the cost of longer days or a longer school year. A teacher can lose their job if a charter does not meet its student academic standards. What does teaching at a charter school look like? Teaching may look different at each charter school because they are all different in their focuses and management. Often, teaching at a charter school gives the teacher more freedom to design the classroom according to the needs of their students. This could include pacing the content for a student, teaching in a way that satisfies specific learners, and the ability to incorporate student interest. Charter schools are also often small, which means that the class size may be smaller as well. In conclusion, charter schools provide alternative schooling that focuses on a different curriculum or a special population. They provide STEM-focused learning, the arts-focused learning, or provide a safe and comfortable environment for unwed mothers or those who struggle with emotional or behavioral problems. Despite charter schools not providing job security, charter schools are a great option for those seeking a job in a content or population-specific school. For those passionate about the arts, a charter that focuses on integrating the arts into every subject would be a good fit. For those who are passionate about STEM, the right fit may be working for a charter that focuses on STEM curriculum. And lastly, for those who feel compelled to work with students who struggle emotionally, may find that working for a charter that's mission is to provide a safe place to educate those students, the right place for them.
Good morning, class. My name is Eric Lawson, and I will be presenting information on school choice programs, which include vouchers, tax credits, and privatization. What are voucher programs, and how do they improve school choice reforms? Vouchers are financial documents that are issued by governments for families to use to pay the tuition at the school of their choice. The term voucher is applied to checks, invoices, and other forms of written documentation, depending on the state's legislation. The keystone to understanding the advocate's argument for expanding school choice reforms is that it fundamentally gives families the autonomy and power to choose the school that best represents their needs and values. Parents know what is best for their children, and advocates believe that their children's education opportunities should not be restricted by geographical districts. Some states limit vouchers to public school tuition. Other states allow the use of vouchers to pay for private school tuition as well. Advocates for the voucher programs argue that the free market will drive students to more successful schools and close ineffective schools by increased consumer awareness. Opponents to school choice as an educational reform are vocal about the impact vouchers have on widening the gap between socioeconomic statuses and urban schools that are already severely underfunded. The use of vouchers for tuition at religious schools is a controversial subject that required litigation by federal courts, including the United States Supreme Court in a 2002 case. Advocates for the use of vouchers for tuition at religious schools propose that paying educational taxes and then paying for private school tuition is paying double for their children's education. Opponents argue that the use of government-issued funds to be used at a private religious school violates the First Amendment, specifically the Establishment Clause that defines the separation of state and religion. There are a number of court cases that have set precedent for how the courts interpret the law and the use of vouchers as means for paying tuition at a religious school. One of these precedent-setting cases was Lemon versus Kurtzman in 1971, which was decided by the United States Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decision in this case established a three-part test for determining the constitutionality for government funding being used for and by religious institutions. The first part of the test states that the government aid must be secular and neutral. The second test is proving that it is neither advances nor inhibits any religion. Lastly, it must not foster an excessive entanglement with religion. The United States Supreme Court decided in 2002, Zellman versus Simmons-Harris, that voucher funds were issued directly to families and therefore could be used for tuition at religious schools. The Florida Supreme Court struck down the voucher program in Florida during 2006. The Florida Supreme Court ruled that the voucher program violated Florida's Constitution by diverting public funds away from public education, reducing its quality and ability to care for students. In addition, the Florida Supreme Court stated that regulations were inconsistently being applied to public and private schools, with private schools not being held accountable for the same policies. How does the voucher system affect students and teachers? Funding for public schools helps shape and determine the classroom curriculum and size. If funding for public education suffers, then extracurricular activities may be cut or fees may be charged for participation, as many schools are now doing, for supplemental revenue. Without adequate funding, the school's environment and culture will suffer, and most importantly, the student's ability to learn will be inhibited. When funds are channeled to the most successful schools, then the talented pool of teachers and administrators are siphoned away from the schools that serve lower socioeconomic statuses as well. The organization and function of the school and classroom may change depending on student enrollment. The research for school improvement with voucher programs provides little clarity on the subject. The results are mixed, with some research showing incremental improvement, while others demonstrate no improvement in student success. School choice advocates argue against the uniformity of schools in the United States and insist that options for schools should be as diverse as the nation's population. The compensation that teachers and administrators receive may decrease as competition for enrollment and funding increase. Advocates for school choice argue that the competition in the free market will naturally improve schools. Opponents propose that ambition for increased funding and profits will act as a driving force by continually lowering teacher wages. Many states have enacted legislation that prohibits collective bargaining, and teachers who are there for the students and not the paycheck may be required to exist on even less. What is a state tuition tax credit? A state tuition tax credit program is an alternative to a voucher program. The state tuition tax credit plan gives tax credits to families that spend their income on private school tuition. The state tuition tax credit primarily benefits families in higher socioeconomic statuses who are already sending their children to private schools. The concept of a tax credit is more politically advantageous than a tax-funded voucher program in many states. While tax credits benefit the wealthy, the credits do so at the expense of lower socioeconomic families. In 2000, Illinois lost a total of $61 million in tax revenue for the state. Less than 3% of tax credits were claimed by families earning less than $20,000 a year, while 80% were claimed by those earning over $80,000 a year. In Arizona, the controversy of separation of state and religion caused additional legal problems for state tuition tax credits. Approximately 91% of the funds were sent to private religious schools. The federal judge ruled that funds collected by the private religious schools in Arizona violated the Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution. Why is the privatization of the educational system occurring? Privatization is systemic of school choice reforms as more educational services are outsourced to corporations. The process started in the 1960s when for-profit corporations attempt performance contracting, which is essentially forecasting the student's growth and success and guaranteeing the performance achievement that is determined in the contract. Upon success, the contracts would be renewed, and if failed, the contracts would be terminated. The corporations did not succeed with the objectives to improve student test scores and eventually went into bankruptcy. The National Center for Education Statistics listed the total educational expenditures in 2011 as $632 billion. The advocates for privatization through school choice, including vouchers, argue that schools and districts that are big government-controlled bureaucracies would operate at lower cost and more efficiently under corporate management. The model that corporate enterprises created is similar to that of HMOs or health management organizations. This has increased privately operated and for-profit schools from the buying and selling of schools. Critics counter the arguments for privatization by emphasizing that education should not be commoditized and monetized. 6 states have ESAs, or educational savings accounts, that deposit funds directly to families to use for educational services. This account is similar to FSAs, or flexible spending accounts, that can be used to pay for healthcare services. Vouchers, state tuition, tax credits, and privatization are alternatives to traditional public school and made possible by the No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top federal programs. These 2 major reform programs propelled the school choice movement by placing emphasis on vouchers and charter schools. The privatization of the United States educational system has been proved to be a difficult objective to accomplish and achieve. According to the statistics provided in our textbook, a public poll in 2014 resulted with 37% of Americans supporting voucher programs and 67% of the American population opposing voucher programs. Thank you for your time, and this concludes my portion of the presentation.
So to wrap everything up, school choice is important for everyone, but especially the families not privileged enough to be able to send their child to a private school or even to drive across town every day to bring and pick up their children to a non-neighborhood public school. Furthermore, some school districts are so bad that there aren't even viable alternatives, and that's why it's so important. It has resulted in major forms of education reform, such as charter schools and vouchers.